Hello everyone and welcome to Wowhead Weekly number 261. Today's show is special for multiple reasons. One of BlizzConline just happening last weekend, so there is a lot to talk about. And the second thing is our very, very special guest, who I will introduce shortly, but not yet. The perfect timing for a guest is after a BlizzConline, and here we are. We got a guest, and we can talk about all the things together as the perfect BlizzCon spirit. I'll quickly introduce myself. I'm Annie, or also known as Annie Fuchsia, and as always, the co-host of the show is Perculia.
Hey everyone, I'm Perk. I run Wowhead. We've had quite the amazing weekend covering all the BlizzCon news from retail to classic to even Diablo. And we also have a Bright Paw here who is also happy to see everyone. And we even had him modeling some new merchandise, and now he's biting my arm. We have another special guest, Bright Paw. Don't try to grandstand. Bright Paw, don't. We have a special guest on this week's show. What better time to have a guest like Annie said? You may have seen her Twitch streams focusing on day-to-day WoW activities, or her videos that have lots of useful tips ranging from like raiding to, the economy to pet battles. Please give a warm welcome to HazelNuttyGames.
Way! Hi, Hazel.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being
replacing the post-BlizzCon rideshare back to the airport conversation where you like unwind everything and start to process it. This is great.
Yes. Yeah, indeed. And feel free to tell us more about yourself. I think, I'm sure a lot of people here knows Hazel, but for the few that may not, would love to hear about you and what you do.
I think Perk said it better than I could myself. I stream on Twitch, doing pretty much whatever I'm normally doing at WoW. So lately, some alt gearing, setting up a new character at 60. YouTube is I do a weekly news show where I recap whatever's been going on in the past week and answer some questions, and then also tips, videos, and guides and whatever is new and current and fresh for me. So all of those are just HazelNuttyGames, YouTube, and Twitch, and that's about it.
That's really cool. That's awesome. I know a lot of people are really, really big fans of you. You're mentioned a lot in many different places to do with WoW. People love what you do. I think we can already see it in the chat as well. We got a couple hearts here and there.
Hazel also has a nice cat that is much better behaved than Bright Paw.
Hazel does have a cat as well. We saw a little sneak peek earlier on before the show started.
Okay, I think Bright Paw is turning into a pumpkin.
Oh, he's like, I'm done.
Yes.
I am done, Mom. Enough camera time, okay? But yes, BlizzConline last weekend, which means there's a lot of different things to cover. And as we mentioned now, more than once, what better time to have a guest for that? Because that makes things more fun to talk about. We can start off straight away and just jump into 9.1. So Chains of Domination, the name of the new patch.
So what stood out to you the most from this patch? We'll highlight, some things in greater detail, but like what impressed you the most? Like, first impressions, what stood out?
I am pardon me.
Go ahead. You go ahead. I was actually gonna say I think I'd like to hear Hazel, so go ahead.
Sorry. I am particularly excited for the Mega Dungeon. I think that it was fairly expected that we would get a raid in 9.1, but they don't always add dungeons in the first patch as well.
True.
And Mechagon was so much fun, and Karazhan was so much fun before that, and there's just something really special about those like really challenging, super long 5-man experiences, at least at first, before they break them up later. And I'm really looking forward to having the broker themed stuff, because we've only had a couple of broker themed fights so far, and that's been one of the more unique and interesting elements of Shadowlands that I'm excited to get to see more of.
Yeah, they're really mysterious, and some of the lore interviews they're hinting that like they have like a really interesting past, and the rewards are fun. Like there's the broker cat reward, and they just sort of pop up in weird places. Like the brokers are helping the Ember Court celebrate Christmas, but they also, Venari is really mysterious, so it's fun to learn more about them. They seem to be real characters.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
So, do you want to go next, Danny, or do you want me to go?
You go.
So I think well, we can mention a little bit later, but I was really excited for some of the, little unconventional things. Like I was very happy to hear that the Dreadlords were going to be part of 9-1 because that confirms a lot of fan theories linking the Dreadlords to secretly working with the jailer and them being responsible for lots of chaos that's been happening. And also hearing about the rewards was fun. Like, we have the flying mounts, the armor sets. I like how the armor sets, especially the Kyrian, they're sort of doesn't look like traditional WoW aesthetics. You have, things that seem themed after each zone in silhouettes we haven't seen before. Like, I don't think we've seen, shorter skirts before in WoW. It's either like a robe or pants.
Yeah, no,
so I think that's a cool development. And then, of course, the Covenant Pepe. That was not announced during a panel, but was in the starting zone interview. I'm really excited that Pepe is, he's everywhere. He's figured out how to join covenants, all of them at the same time. We can't do that, but he can.
Yeah, I love that. And I even have some pictures from the community later to show off with Pepe from the different covenants. No, but that is true. It's so cute having Pepe coming into the new expansion and also, fitting into all the themes as well. For me, I think I feel like you both had really good answers. The only thing not mentioned, and maybe it's a little bit cliche, but I am a sucker for cinematics, and I am really excited that we did get a cinematic, and one that was pretty heavy as well. We will probably jump into it a little bit more later on as we talk about the details of it, but seeing Anduin be transformed like that in front of our eyes in a way was, I don't know, it was really shocking, and I didn't expect that to happen, not this soon. I didn't expect something big like that to happen right now. So I would say the cinematic was probably the other big thing for me, apart from the things that you guys mentioned.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting because, as many people know, based on site traffic, there was a leak on Thursday. Well, leak is a strange word, but Blizzard, for whatever reason, the press materials are uploaded and public for Burning Crusade Classic and 9-1. And there is a piece of concept art that was called Chains of Domination Anduin that showed him in his transformed state. We marked this as spoilers, but obviously it was out there. And a lot of people worried that, BlizzCon would be ruined, but, your reaction to the cinematic was still it's still a really cool, shocking reveal, and the cinematic was powerful. So, you still needed to experience BlizzCon in the cinematic. It's not like the entire 2-day convention was replicated in this pretty small press kit.
Yeah, no, definitely. Seeing it as a moving, animation was so different from reading about it or seeing pictures. So, yeah, I think the cinematic was still pretty impactful regardless of spoilers.
Yeah. So, we will dive into certain topics in the show with 9-1, some of the things that were more controversial, but just as a recap, new dungeon, new raid, flying, more renown, new zone Korthia, lots of cool rewards like a hand mount.
Oh yeah.
That looked amazing. And then of course
Burning Crusade.
Yeah, people love mounts like this. I got Legion flashbacks when they announced 7-2 with the artifact skins and the class mounts. It was like a similar hype vibe to the cosmetics. And then some Torghast changes, and this wasn't in the notes. Why do we mention the charity pet program, or did I put in the notes and I forgot because it was busy? I think we should discuss the pet program because I feel like people.
Yeah, it is lower down, but we can take it up.
Oh,
yep.
We can. No, sorry, we can do the cinematic first. We can mention the pets later. I think we should jump into the cinematic. Do you want to play the cinematic and then we can discuss some of the higher level things, not like a lore deep dive, but just like, holy shit, aren't this parallels type thing?
Yeah, let's do that. The cinematic is not very long, and as we normally do with cinematics, we, if they're not too long, we play them so that we can kind of watch them together. So let me get it running here. And then we'll talk about it. Let's go.
Look around you. What makes you believe you're not just a weapon to achieve his ends?
Enough! Join our cause, or be made to serve.
Right now, you hold all the power. Make your choice, Sylvanas Windrunner.
Despite all our efforts, the Maw continues to grow. What if Denathrius' treachery is irreparable? The Primus is lost, and Bastion cannot save the Shadowlands alone.
None of this should have happened.
Perhaps the Winter Queen could...
My Archon, a living soul, seeks an audience.
A mortal?
A king. By all our measures, one who has spent his life striving for justice. One who would give anything to serve his people. One whose heart is true.
Very well. He may approach. Step forward. My Ascended have spoken of you. The king, held captive in the Maw.
That prison could not hold me forever.
Why have you come to Bastion?
You have a key that I need.
You will release this soul from your grasp.
No. He is bound to me.
Just as you once sought to bind your own brother. The vessel performed its part flawlessly. 3 keys remain. Then they will see. Death was never meant to be chained.
The Maw awaits. Chains of Domination. Such a nice introduction to that.
Yeah. I think that was one of Blizzard's best cinematics that they've done. It was, it was really powerful. And Brightpaw's rubbing his head against the mic in agreement.
It really was, especially with the Arthur's parallels, which we will talk about here as well. First off, Hazel, what are your first thoughts on the cinematic?
It was very cool, and even though I also read the leaks before watching it, I still didn't really expect the direction that it went. And I think this is a good look for Anduin. I think that he looks flattering in that color. I think that he's been doing the same sort of, I want to do my best, but I'm worried I'm not good enough thing for a long time, and it's understandable, but it's nice to hear something new from him. I'm hoping that, I am assuming, and this is a baseless assumption, maybe he'll just die, I don't know. But if we assume that eventually in the course of Shadowlands, we get him out of there somehow, because I think they made it fairly clear that he's still in there and he's not driving these decisions. I really hope that when he comes back to us, he's not just the same character that he was beforehand, and that he's changed somewhat in an interesting direction after this experience, so that we get something new from him, because I think that he's he's too. I'd hate for them to write him out. But he's been doing the same thing for a while. It'd be interesting to see him grow after this.
Yeah, I think
that's a
that
good
end
point.
was really interesting because, while he is the king of Stormwind, he has a very interesting personality, but they were kind of doing the same thing with him, right? Like he's, a guy that's not good at, fighting with melee. He was always more peaceful, while his, dad was, a famous warrior, gladiator. He seemed compassionate. We saw him struggle being a leader. He wasn't, total charisma like, Sylvanas in Legion. So I think that they could do something very different and unconventional with him, but they were sort of just repeating the same story beats with him for a while. So he was getting stale, even though he had potential. So like you said, I think it's clear that he is trying to resist the powers in the helm. And, like there are moments where I think the facial expressions are amazing. They updated his model going into Shadowlands, and like you can just really see the emotion and the conflict. And then when the jailer pays more attention and controls him more, and then gets distracted, and Anduin's back to himself. And I think that could lead to some really interesting character development once he's freed, especially because you have Turalyon back at home, sort of itching for a war and very different. And so it'll be just interesting to see where Anduin goes after this. But yeah, there were parallels to Arthas as well as his father Varian in it, and the visual references were really well done, and something that you could still appreciate even if you saw that one piece of Anduin concept art. The story building up to it was really great. I think like the moment where Uther puts the hand on his chest.
Oh yeah.
And it's like he's feeling the wound caused by Frostmourne and the Maw. Like he senses Anduin, but he's also having. It's like the shot looks really similar to Arthas walking into the throne room. So it's like he has flashbacks to, Arthas, his pupil, being under control of the jailer. So that worked on many different layers, I thought. And again, you couldn't get that just from a leak.
Yeah, definitely. And I especially like the article, I'm not sure who wrote it, if it was you, Perk, or somebody else on Wowhead, that pointed out that at first glance, people might think that he's reacting because he sees Anduin and recognizes him, but he doesn't necessarily know how Anduin even looks like. So it's probably more so to do with the aura around Anduin itself, and that's why he held himself there where his wound was. And I thought that was a very, very interesting take and point made by the author. I don't remember who wrote that, but
it was me and
it was you.
I think we tagged it.
Yeah.
And also, it works well on like a meme level. Like the Uther memes are on point, being like when you have to scroll down to find your birth year on a web form, or when your your Uber Eats delivery is like delayed another hour. So it's good when it can work on a meta level as well.
Yeah, that is awesome.
Another parallel I thought was really cool was when you have the sword, and some of the shots using the corrupted weapon were reminiscent of Arthas in the Wrath cinematic, like plunging the sword and then Sindragosa comes up.
Oh,
but
I have that visually here.
Yeah, cool. But also Varian using the uncorrupted version at the Broken Shore to like, he leaps up in the air and then he attacks the Fel Reaver, and then you've got the parallel of Anduin leaping into the air with the corrupted version, but he's not doing something heroic. He's doing the opposite effect.
Yeah,
which is a good question. Like, are we like, where's Varian? Is he gonna be like, I sense my son, like coming? Like, what zone is he in? Like,
yeah, it seems like a really good question. Hazel, have you put any thought into where Varian might be here, or when? Maybe not where he is, but when or if you think we would see him in the Shadowlands at all?
Honestly, not really. I just kind of assumed that everybody's in the Maw, because I don't know. I know that somebody knows approximately when the soul started getting diverted, or maybe they don't. I'm unclear, but I just kind of figured if he hasn't turned up by now, then perhaps he is in the Maw. But perhaps he's just hanging out somewhere and he hasn't really had an interest in it, especially if
he's on like the relaxing
Drakka and Thrall haven't
island.
met up just yet. So
yeah,
there's time.
Yeah, I think there was a joke that like Durotan was off on like a happy like Shadowlands realm where he doesn't have to do anything and he can just like make dad jokes. So maybe Varian is there too. I don't think we know exactly when the Shadowlands problem happened, but I think it was sometime after Emerald Nightmare, because Ysera was like one of the final ones to make it through, and Varian died before her.
Yeah.
But it is weird we haven't. Maybe like he got yoinked earlier. Something happened to him.
He's been secretly a fire elemental the whole time, so he went to the elemental plane instead.
Yeah.
Oh, that's it. That's it.
Yeah. Another thing is, so what's up with Sylvanas? Like we talked about Anduin's facial expressions being like really subtle and nuanced, and she goes through a lot of different emotions as well. And, you know, we last saw her, Anduin was like taunting her, like, you know, make a decision, you're always miserable, do you want to do this? And you know, what's up with her? Like, is there like a secret reason why Anduin's resisting control? Like, has she put 2 and 2 together and realized that the jailer actually created Frostmourne, which, you know, was responsible for a lot of shitty things in her life? What do you guys think is going on with her? As you will be the final boss of the raid.
If you want to, you can pass it. Yeah.
Well, so I don't have any remarkable theories. I do think there's some talk going around about, you know, is she feeling regret? Does that mean they're going to redeem her? Is she going to turn around and, you know, feel bad about what she did? And I think that her feelings are probably a reflection of some facts that she knows that we don't yet. She's been up to something, and I think we're still lacking full details about exactly what's going on with that. So we know she's working with the jailer for now, but we don't know if that's her ultimate plan. If she is just kind of feeling bad about her choices now, after everything she's done, then I don't think it's particularly relevant, you know? Sucks. That's a shame you did that. So she'll have to live with it whether she feels bad or not. Well, I guess we'll find out if it's about something that we don't know yet.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like, she clearly knows something we don't, but then it's also like, when we do the legendaries, we get that cinematic where the jailer is, you know, ordering the creation of the Helm and Frostmourne, and I don't think she has access to that. So it's like we're both operating under different assumptions, and we both don't know the full story. Another thing I thought was interesting was we don't actually see the moment where Anduin is turned. And I thought it was noteworthy how they keep being like, oh, Anduin is the perfect vessel. But it's like, if he is slipping back into himself, is he the perfect vessel? Like, you know, like, did Sylvanas not go all out restraining? Like, is this part of, like, you know, another one of her 4D chess plans? Like, you know, it's interesting how to me, if Anduin was the perfect vessel and immediately after he stabs someone, he expresses regret and comes back to himself, to me that's not working as intended.
That was such a good scene. You see him kind of like snap back to himself, and you see the horror and, you know, potential regret, and then suddenly he just as if something is like just pumped up and he's suddenly back to being a Lich King and completely emotionless. That was pretty creepy, actually. But yeah, I wonder if, like you said, if that could be due to Sylvanas maybe limiting how much she did whatever she has done to him. If there's some kind of...
she really didn't want to do it in the cinematic.
Yeah, she didn't want to, I have a little picture here which shows when she is looking at Anduin, when Anduin is looking at the jailer, and the jailer was talking. And she, to me, she looks a bit concerned and maybe like almost, potential regret at him. And then she looks down, which is, you know, the typical look for thinking, right? And then she looks up and she looks slightly more frowned at the jailer. And it makes you wonder, like, what is she thinking here? Is she, because there were two theories that I was hearing from people. My initial thought was that she's looking at him and she's wondering, did I do the right thing, right? Because we saw in the previous cinematic as well that she didn't seem too happy about forcing him. She wanted to convince him. She wanted to be sure that he believed in the cause, but she obviously wasn't able to convince him, and maybe that's why she's feeling that regret. And now maybe seeing him turn into this Lich King, she realizes, like, wait, maybe this isn't really what I wanted to do. and she looks potentially maybe a little bit not angry, but a bit concerned at the jailer. Another side of this that some people brought up to me was maybe she is looking at him because she wants to be that main, sort of star in this.
She wants the sword.
Potentially, yeah. Like that was another one. Like she wants to be that main character in this, and now Anduin is getting all of the attention. I thought that was pretty interesting too.
Yeah, I also, when I first saw that, I thought that maybe that was the moment where she starts, like, she sees the visual similarities, like, she sees Anduin looking really similar to Arthas, holding up the similar looking weapon, and then she's like, have I been played as well? I'm talking about wanting to ease Anduin and win him over, and then she's like, have I been, tricked as well? Have I been, like, slowly, like, worn down over time to go along with this? So maybe she's realizing that he's trying to make her into a pawn as well. Which brings us to thoughts, like, she's going to be the final boss of the raid. Which I think is really interesting symmetry, because, with BFA we had Warbringers, and Jaina, Ashara, Sylvanas, we fought the other two women as end bosses, and now we're gonna fight Sylvanas, the third Warbringer.
That's true. She was the third Warbringer.
Yeah, it seems really interesting. I'm wondering what they're gonna do with it, because they were saying it wasn't going to be like a traditional fight. It was going to be really epic, and there's going to be like a lot of story in it. And like her story's 30 years old, so I'm just like, there's going to be a lot going on there. Like, are there going to be like a billion interludes? Is it going to be like a 20-minute fight?
Is she going to sacrifice herself to save Anduin?
They said that at the end of the Shadowlands, there was going to be at the end of the fight, like, it was going to have a big impact on Shadowlands. And I don't think this interview is recapped on Wowhead yet, but I think in Warcraft Radio they were talking about environment changes, and how, like, there was going to be like a big environment change at the end of Shadowlands, similar to like finishing the Tomb of Sargeras and you see Argus in the sky. So
it might be one of those.
Yeah.
Hazel, do you want to see Sylvanas defeated, or do you want to see her redeemed?
I don't know. I think it would be odd for her story to completely end. That would be an interesting thing. That would be a really bold thing for them to do, given what a popular character she still is. But you can't just keep stringing the story out forever, so I think the more likely situation is that she gets, written out for a while, and then you pull her back in 4 or 5 years for whenever the time feels right again. But yeah, I don't think I want to see her turn around and then come back in a leadership position. But I also don't think that means that we need to necessarily kill her, especially because the meaning of death is getting a little fuzzy, especially in
that's
the
also
Shadowlands
true.
Now.
That is
starting
also
to mean
true.
a little less.
It's like we kill her, but then we see her again in Shadowlands.
Do you think that Thanos is going to make an appearance in the raid? Because he obviously went somewhere, and I don't know, maybe he's like being used as like blackmail for Sylvanas, that like, he's being kept like alive or not tortured if he goes along with stuff, or he'll make a surprise appearance in the raid as well, and we'll fight both of them at some point. I think leading up to Shadowlands, we had an interview and they confirmed that it was very likely we'd see him again. So now seems like the right time if we're gonna be fighting Sylvanas.
Definitely.
And he's always, protecting her, supporting her.
And that's what he did say to Rhonda as well, didn't he? Like, see you on the other side kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think we can expect to see him just about now, around his queen, of course.
I would be happy to not have his story continue, though. Like, I don't think people really like him.
Yeah,
and it's always
anyone likes him.
He's like shows up and like God modes everything. It's like, oh, look at me. Like, I lost, but I still won. Or, the Alliance can't be in Dazar Lore and the Warfriend at the same time, but I can be. Like, he's always just sort of like twirling his mustache and then like vanishing. So I would just like a satisfying end for him. Like, have Tehran just like I don't know, get rid of him, and then like a tree magically grows up or something after he dies.
Tree, yeah.
Yeah.
That would be something. I think with Sylvanas being in the next raids does mean that Tyrande will come back too.
Yeah, I hope so. They were talking about the Covenant campaigns continuing, and tying up like a lot of the loose threads, and she's just, we got hints that there were more Night Warriors elsewhere, but she's sort of like MIA, just like rampaging through Torghast. So her story is definitely still open-ended.
Also, I think they said that the 9.1 campaign stories are going to be the same for all Covenants. And maybe that means that stories such as Tyrande's will become more global now, like across all Covenants. So more people are aware that she's around and, pursuing this fight with Sylvanas.
Yeah, that was in the interview we had with Muffinus, the Wowhead interview, and the old Covenant stuff will be Covenant specific, but the 9.1 stuff everyone will share. So like you'll know what's going on with like Uther and Tyrande. If you're that particular Covenant, you might get like, I don't know, extra little embellishments when you get to your Covenant's bit, but like the main story will be the same, so you'll actually understand what's going on, which I think is a good move.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm not sure if we had a specific section about this, but I feel like it's a good time to mention it. There was the interview, maybe you can tell me which one, or maybe it was part of the Q&A. I think it was the Q&A actually, where people were asking, so what is up with the Archon now?
Oh yeah, we should highlight that. She's still alive.
Yeah.
They were actually concerned that people wouldn't get that, so they tried to have like the hand being raised up so that she was still alive.
Yeah, because you could see it in the cinematic too, right? That's something I didn't notice the first time I watched it, but when I went back and saw it, then I did see that happen, and it was part of the Q&A as well, and they also confirmed she's not gone yet, basically.
Yeah, I think it's a neat parallel with Anduin. Like, she had something traumatic happen, and she is still alive, and Anduin is controlled for now, but you can see a glimpse that he is still, surviving in some form at the end of the cinematic. So maybe there's hope that the Archon will recover, and Anduin eventually will recover in a later patch. Even though it ends at a dark note, there's still hope. It's not like Anduin is gone and the Archon is totally dead.
Yeah.
I thought she was just dying dramatically. I did not realize.
No, I thought so too.
She was still alive until the Q&A.
Yeah, I didn't realize either. It was after the Q&A I went back and watched, and I was like, oh yeah, there's a bit of movement. Interesting.
Maybe Bastion will like wake up now, because they're always like so smug and like they're like, oh, we know the path, like question us, and it's like, well, look where this got you guys. Like, like you were the most gullible realm here.
Yeah, and this would have been a good time for Devos to be there, but nope.
Devos can just be like, I told you so.
Yeah.
Put Devos in charge instead.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that she's not dead, though, because that was, Anduin did get something when he was there, so he did his job, but presumably the other one was to kill the Archon, and he didn't even do that right. So is he really the perfect vessel?
Exactly.
Like, how do you mess up stabbing somebody in the chest with a giant sword?
Yep.
Anduin's never good
How
at
did you miss?
Yeah.
How does she survive that?
Like, was that on purpose? Was Sylvanas like, okay, like, I'll sort of turn him so like he's still kind of in control of his facilities, and like maybe if he's strong enough, the light will save him. But yeah, that is a really good point. He does this big dramatic sword leap, and it doesn't finish the job. If you compare it with the Bastion cinematic when Arthas is fighting Uther, he pulled his soul out, or Uther was totally dead, gone, and Anduin didn't do the same here, even though he was like forcibly mind controlled by the jailer.
Yeah, I would imagine there's something interesting about the Paragons that makes them more resilient, given by the fact that we're reasonably certain that the Primus is not totally gone, even if he's absent for now, and yeah, I'm just interested to see if Carestia remains in a position of leadership, because I'm not a big fan of how she's been doing things so far, and I want to see where the Kyrian can go if somebody else steps up.
You know, that's actually a
Yeah.
really good point as well, you mentioning Primus, because then we've got Primus, we've got Side and Athreus that we just defeated in a raid, and then we got Archon, which is, almost dead, but not really. So the Winter Queen is like the only leader really left here.
Yeah, who's like doing a good job, like saving her realm from, shitty things.
Yeah.
I had to laugh about Sire and Nathrius because I think in the past, when we discussed the Nathrius cinematic, we're like, gee, like, that's weird. No one wants to go find him, but he's really easy to find with this big, beam of Naru light where he is. And I don't know who has the Venthyr key, but if it's tied to him, then yeah, he's really easy to find. And, I can definitely picture the Jailer's forces trying to just, like, steal the sword and extract it from it.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't really hide away the Sardonathrius very well.
No.
But yeah, I hope they change up the Kyrian. Like, I think everyone's sort of first impression of Bastion is like, wow, it's really pretty and like, angels and Greek mythology and wings, and you keep playing and you're like, oh, these people are really weird and it's strange that like you lose your memory and like your body is forcibly taken away, and if you resist then you're like a forsworn terrible angel, and the stewards are cute but they're also like slaves, and it's like a really pretty image, but then when you poke deeper it's like sort of it's like really messed up. So maybe with a new change of leadership, they'll have to be like, hey, our horrible ideas sort of got us to this point, which isn't great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just want them to stop dumping new souls in the maw only to turn around and get the Mothworn to go get him back out again. It seems really pointless.
Yeah, they're like, oh, like let's not question that we're making the situation worse and like amping up the jail, or let's just keep doing our thing and someone else will deal with our dirty work. But yeah, why don't we discuss some of the details of the raid that we learned in with like interviews, because I feel like the actual presentation was very light besides really pretty pictures, and we learned a lot more stuff from the interviews. And we obviously didn't have a demo as usual, so it just was a lot of like little pieces that maybe people weren't aware of if they just watched the free panels. So the thing that was most popular on Wowhead as far as discussions was a clip from our interview where we asked about the class tier sets being planned. Those are not coming in 9.1, but still for Shadowlands. What we are getting in 9.1 is a bunch of armor sets themed after the Maw, using the appearance for the legendary armor, but you can only, have one at a time. But now you'll be able to collect the full set, and they're using a bunch of unused tints. And you can also get matching weapons. And we've actually data mined a few of them. So that is the set we're getting. So, they'll probably just be like, mythic, heroic, LFR, etc.
Yeah.
You don't need to like collect a full set of legendary armor to unlock it.
If you have the legendary armor, it doesn't even give you the appearance, does it?
I think that like, I mean, you can wear it and get the appearance, but it's not like, oh, I crafted the shoulders, so now I can always use the shoulders, and I crafted the helm, so I'll just, now I have two pieces. It's it's very restricted. But with the 9.1, you can transmog the full set, which I think people are sad they don't have the class sets, but I think that they're happy that you can get the really cool alternate tints. Like the plate set is very Arthas, and there's like a pure white version of it that I think looks really cool. So,
because I think there were a couple people who, after they crafted the legendary that they needed, they started crafting like other pieces that they wanted for transmog reasons, but then
that's not how it works.
Yeah, you don't learn the transmog by getting the legendary, so, and you can't wear more than one, so you can't actually look like that. But with these armor sets coming, then it's actually going to be possible to transmog into it.
Yeah, so that was like the most hype piece of news on Wowhead from the interview, not panel stuff, that you get this cool appearance, but then the class stuff is delayed a while. I'm a little surprised they didn't hint at the class tier stuff, because when we interviewed Ian about this in October, he said that the concept art was well underway. So I think that could have been like a good, I don't know, Argus moment at the end, being like, you know, we're focused on 9-1, but, you know, picture of, you know, pure set. There's more coming. I think that could have been cool. But,
Yeah.
you know,
I'm showing off
I'm
some
sure
of the
they don't-
cloth
yeah.
tints here.
Yeah, I think like we don't have all the weapons, but I think that the ones we do have look really cool. Like the mace and the staff to go along with it, and yeah, you know, we sort of predicted the Maw raid all along because the models were really called like Maw Legendary
Oh
Raiders.
yeah.
But yeah, it's nice to see that confirmed.
A bit of leather here as well.
As we're showing this off, I also just want to, you know, highlight that just curious what you think about this, Hazel. Like the presentations, you know, had some interesting pictures and big strokes, but they explicitly said at the start they didn't want to get into systems, and you know, they didn't have a 9-1 release date. So I took that to mean that 9-1 was not super far along, or they were trying to get feedback on 905 first. But to me, it was a little concerning or odd they weren't going into systems. Like when I saw WoW Deep Dive on the panel, I assumed that was going to be like Shadowlands Deep Dive, not like Burning Crusade podcast. So did you have a similar vibe? Like you were thinking you'd hear more like nuts and bolts stuff, and then it was like you know, more visuals?
Yeah, it's strange for a BlizzCon patch presentation for it to be so light on details. And my impression was the same as yours, where it maybe isn't as far along as it could be. But the other thing that occurred to me is that maybe if they're doing anything that's out of left field or that's harder to parse from like a text post or a presentation, then maybe they want to wait until the PTR is up, and they're waiting for that. They mentioned something about the 9-1 PTR happening shortly after 905 comes out, and it's possible that they want us to be forming opinions alongside being able to test an early version of it, as opposed to just reading a post or seeing a presentation and then just stewing with that and whatever, you know, people assume about it without having to be able to actually, without getting to actually test it. So it either means there's not much yet and we'll find out later, or there's something real wild and we'll find out later. But I would expect that we'll get something after 905, so maybe like late March, whenever the patch is out and they've had a week or so to kind of settle down. I'm hoping for more info, because I think a lot of people are very curious about how they address raid loot now that we have a basic plan for Mythic Plus loot, and we have, you know, of course, the hotfixes to raid just dropping more pieces. But I think people are looking for something more in terms of getting their gear from not just the vault as raiders.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there were some like vague hints in some of the interviews. I think there was like an EU group interview and then a PC Gamer one where like one was like, oh, you know, we've got something cool from Raid, maybe like a way where you can, you know, empower the Raid gear in a way that works for Raid. And then another one talking about maybe going to like WoD style PvP armor. So PvP was the best specifically for PvP, but that wasn't in the main presentation. And these were sort of just like, we have ideas, like very short blurb in the interview. So, you know, maybe we'll get like a systems, you know, like a little systems video in like a month or two. And maybe Blizzard also wants to see how 905 goes with their whole Valor Points Mythic Plus situation. You know, seeing how people respond to that before they unveil, you know, tweaks to their other endgame loot systems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, honestly, now in hindsight, I feel like if they had introduced the Valor Points and gone into detail on how the upgrading system would work, that would be an interesting thing as a deep dive, as opposed to sort of storytelling in a way, or not storytelling, but the TBC talk.
Both.
Yeah. The TBC talk and everything. It kind of felt like you said, that there wasn't really a deep dive. It was more of like the discussion. The deep dive itself was lacking a bit, and maybe it is because, like you said, they haven't. Yeah, it was like more like a podcast, and for a BlizzCon, that could be a little bit strange that there was nothing else announced, and that could be because, like you said, it's just not ready yet. The Mythic Plus upgrading system is not in the game yet, so before that's in the game, maybe they can't really decide yet what they're gonna do with the raiding gear. because I think it is one of their top priorities right now. They have noticed how the PvP gearing system was very popular and well received, so they're fixing this Mythic Plus gearing, and they want to fix the raiding gear too, but they just don't have a specific plan for it, so it didn't feel right to put it as a presentation.
Yeah, because normally... Go ahead.
Oh, it would have been really interesting to hear if they had done, just theoretically, a presentation about, like, if they wanted to do something that was more conversational, like the history of gear currencies, because this is not the first time we've had Valor points. They've done badges, they've done points, they've done justice points,
Valor
and
points
the way that you get and upgrade gear has really evolved a lot throughout the expansions. And obviously it evolves for a reason. Some things are working and some things don't within certain contexts. And I think a lot of people, it's very easy to kind of clown on Blizzard for bringing back something that they've already done before to fix a problem that they have had in the past. But I think the contexts are different, and it would be interesting to hear more about the rationalizations of why something was phased out and something else was brought in, and kind of more the motivations of why some of these decisions are made and then unmade over time, so that we can understand a little bit better what they're going for and what kind of solutions they might be likely to try next.
Yeah, no, I think people would appreciate that kind of talk, actually.
Sort of related, I saw a thread, I can't remember who said it on Twitter, where they were talking about how they wanted to do like a day in the life of QA and highlighting some of the QA horror stories and pulling the curtain back a lot. But there was some internal debate that they didn't want to like reflect, I guess, on their things that can make the company look bad. So I wonder if, people would find it interesting, but, maybe someone at the top was worried it could be like the wrong branding, like, oh, oh, look, we messed up. We had to refix this solution. But I agree. I think that a retrospective on these sorts of systems over the years would be interesting, especially now that, like the genesis of a lot of these systems are coming back. Like, Burning Crusade introduced Arena, and now, in Shadowlands, it's like, Arena is like suddenly very exciting again. So I think that, I thought, obviously the pandemic has lots of challenges in organizing things, but yeah, I did think that the approach taken for WoW felt a little uneven. I thought that the Diablo approach at BlizzConline was a bit more well-rounded, with like every panel got like a fluffy visual story one, and then like a more specific one as well. So it would have been nice to have more WoW info structured. As polished as Diablo.
Maybe we just needed Classic and Shadowlands separated. Maybe that was the thing.
Yeah, especially
as well.
the Q&A. Like, I thought it was a little weird how the Q&A was just like bouncing between like TBC and Shadowlands. Because like one group doesn't care about the other. So
yeah, like I'm sure a lot of people do play both to some extent, but in terms of being committed enough to care about these Q&As, I feel like usually they can be a bit one-sided, so maybe they should have had two separate ones for both.
Yeah. We will actually get into some of those Q&A questions because some of the answers were kind of spicy there. But yeah, before we do, highlighting a fluffy thing, I actually really like the small presentation. Going back to what you were just saying, Hazel, about like it would be cool if they did little retrospectives on interesting things. I really liked the 10-minute panel on the Wandering Ancient. I mean, we didn't need an hour on it, but 10 minutes showing the concept art, the weird things you have to do to record the sounds, the rigging.
Yeah, the sound actor was good.
Yeah. I really liked how they even highlighted some of the fan art that the community made, showing how hyped people were. And I thought that was a really nice way to introduce the feature. Maybe we needed like a 10-minute panel on the history of Valor points and where it's going next.
I like that, yeah.
But yeah, so for Wandering Ancient, confirmed 905, mount changes color with seasons, and the Caterpillar mount that didn't win had a little homage. Right back?
Yep, we should be back, and we are looking at the Wandering Ancient.
All right, so I'm not sure where we cut off, but I just was saying that it was really nice having a short panel. Saw lots of cool things, and the TLDR details are the mount is coming in 905. It's free if you have Shadowlands. it changes color with seasons. There's a little caterpillar to reference the caterpillar mount that didn't win. And then I was asking you guys what mount you voted for, because I was Team Cat.
I was fully aboard Team Caterpillar, and I'm still a little heartbroken about it, but I am happy that of the mounts that didn't win, at least the Caterpillar made it onto the back of the mount.
Yeah.
Something.
Lucky you. Lucky you.
Which one did you want?
I think it's such a cute little detail putting it there. I was team what was it called exactly? The book.
The Soaring Spell Tome.
That's it. The Soaring Spell Tome.
That was cool too. Yeah. One of the fan arts that they had for it was incredible, with like little pop-up paper footholds. Those.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw so many of them. They looked so cool. And I think I know which one you're talking about as well. So many great artists out there. And it's so cool because they mentioned this as well as part of the Wandering Ancient coverage, that they were considering to have their own sort of, what's it called? Not like final art, but
concept art.
Concept, thank you. I was looking for that word. They were considering to release concept art for the mounts, but they decided against it, and they were very happy about that because it led to so many people in the community coming up with their own cool arts. And yeah, I saw a lot of those too, so I do agree that it was really cool to do that.
I remember one of the fan artists did like it was like a grandmother tree on like a skateboard. It was like the Wandering Ancient. It was
oh
a really
my god, concept. Yeah, that's funny.
But yeah, speaking of art and some other decisions that maybe did not land positively, in the Q&A, they revealed that they were basically done with customizations in Shadowlands, and maybe they'd consider if it made sense with content, which I took to be something like, you know, Night Warrior campaign gets like new skin. People were very upset and confused by this because in a lot of interviews leading up to Shadowlands, they were like really hyping this up as like the defining like new system feature of the expansion, and how they were always looking for feedback, and you know, they were open to adding more. And this statement at the Q&A was not that. It was very much like we are done with these for now. So
yeah.
I was what did you guys think?
Yeah, it was interesting that it was such a sort of final decision, and not like, yeah, you know, perhaps maybe it looked like no, we're not really planning anything. Maybe it kind of makes sense because they did change a lot to do with the customization coming into Shadowlands, and we are still in the first patch. Like we had the whole revamp of the creator screen, and then we have things being changeable in the barbershop that was not possible before. So maybe they just feel like they want to hold on to that and see more feedback and reactions to things before they add more things. What do you think, Hazel?
Yeah, it felt to me like and I'm just reading between the lines, and I have no idea, just pure speculation, but it kind of felt like at some point they were looking at the resources they had and what they wanted to do next, and they just made the difficult decision that customizations are not top priority, and there's something else they would rather have that talent working on. And there's no real nice way to say no to, you know, I know you want this thing, and for whatever reason that you may or may not understand and that we don't have to divulge to you, we're just not doing it yet. We might circle back to it later, but for now, you know, we gave you stuff in the launch and go play with that.
Yeah.
But it definitely sucks, especially for the races that did not get very much in the redesign and that we're kind of hoping for more later. For sure.
Yeah, I think that it feels especially bad to be a Nightborn because the Lightforged got some things that the Draenei had, and some of their options were split out, so it felt like more customization. The Void Elf got a ton with the Blood Elf skins, and then the High Mountain Tauren, they even got some things with how, you know, again, some of their options were like split apart. They got some, you know, earring options, and the Nightborn just feel really bad, especially because you see all these very elaborate, fancy NPCs in the city, and it's like, this is what you could have been, and this is, you know, you didn't end up with that. And I've also seen the argument that if the Void Elves got some options that the Blood Elves had, and the Nightborn are really similar to Night Elves with body structure, couldn't some of the night elf options have been, moved over to Nightborn just with like a different tint? If the Alliance got some things reminiscent of their like sister horde race, couldn't it have worked vice versa? But yeah, to me, the Nightborn are just kind of in a sad place, and they don't seem to be the focus of the story. So I don't know if there'd be like a big content moment coming for them, or they could like unlock massive new customizations. But it would be nice for Blizzard to acknowledge that. I think they kind of backed themselves into a hole, and like you say, like there's no good way to say no, and I think it's especially difficult when they did a lot of positive branding surrounding customization earlier. It wasn't like a flying under the radar change. It was like, oh, give us feedback, and we want like you to feel at home and welcomed in Azeroth with so many options. And people gave a lot of feedback on customizations, and everyone was like, I submitted, 20 hairstyles. Like, my friend submitted like, 10 body types. Like, like we've definitely gotten feedback on this. Or, some human skin tones get more face options than others. Shouldn't you be more diverse? Like, you shouldn't have just, implemented it halfway. So I think they sort of backed themselves into a corner, promoting customization so much with all these like lofty, empowering goals and asking for feedback, and then they have to sort of rein it back in and be like, no. And like, I think it'd also been preferable being like, we have to work on art for XYZ. Like, I'd rather have gotten details as opposed to making it seem like they were, I don't know, bored or didn't get enough feedback on Nightborn.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think that they still should look at Nightborn, but people have been very vocal about this, so maybe they'll get the message that it's important. But it's tough though. Like, I feel that it's a hard metric to look at. Like, when you add an allied race, you can be like, people spent X amount of time unlocking the allied race, and then they made this many like thousands of new characters, and like that you can measure engagement that way. But with customization, it's like this person feels happier looking at their character. You can't measure it as much, so maybe there was some like business politics going on as well behind the scenes.
Yeah, probably. And they did add a lot as well for a lot of people who previously maybe couldn't have gotten their what's it called, like the combination of eye color, hair color, or maybe the skin tones. Like, for a lot of people now, especially if they play one of the main races like human, they can probably create something that resembles themselves. And I think that was probably a big thing for Blizzard to finally get into the game after all these years. And now they probably feel a bit like, you know what, like we've ticked that box for now. We've ticked the important box. So sadly, these allied races are just kind of forgotten in the shadows. Maybe not enough people play them. And in the future, if they do add customization things, then I think they would, at that point, give a little bit more attention to the ones who were lacking this time. But yeah, it's probably just not a priority at the moment because there's so much other stuff going on.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. Like, people are always asking, like, what's going to happen to, like, Undercity or, Teldrassil. And they're like, oh, that's going to be told, like, in the future. So, fingers crossed, maybe if they, we go back to Azeroth and we continue the stories of, like, politics or whatever, maybe, maybe when the Night Elves, confront the Nightborn, like, hey, we saved you. Why did you burn down the tree? Maybe they'll unlock some options from requests like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, moving on to another sort of controversial, but more positive topic in the Q&A is the faction imbalance discussion, which, like, every interview has asked about faction imbalance. Like, we asked about it too. And yeah, it seemed like Blizzard has changed their tune, I think, for the best since the last Q&A, where is also asked. And now they are like, yeah, the fantasy is important, but we're also realizing, I don't know after how many years of saying this, that there's a social angle that, while it is good to have the Alliance and Horde as, like, game fantasy, if you feel like you cannot play Alliance because all your friends are Horde, that isn't good, and that's like clashing with the fantasy. Like, if you can't experience, like, the quest how you want, for social reasons, that's something we should look into. So
yeah,
I was
that
pleasantly
really
surprised. Again, a little surprised they didn't come to this decision moving into Shadowlands, because it would have been the perfect time to be like, oh look,
After BFA.
we're no longer wanting to destroy each other. Now we can, I don't know, work together on competitive content. But it seemed promising after so many years of just being like, no, this is the way it is. So what did you guys think?
You can go ahead.
Yeah, I thought it was really on point what they said about how it's not really a balance problem anymore, and that the racials are more or less as close as they've ever been, but it's a question of, where do your friends play, but also if you're brand new, you don't know anybody, and you want to get into a raiding guild, you're making your choice blindly, and if your goal is to get into a guild, then you're going to look at, well, where are most of the raiding guilds? So regardless of which faction is better, you're going to pick the one that has a better chance of you being able to find a group of people to play with, because for somebody like that, that's an essential condition that's imperative to them enjoying the game. So I am not attached at all to the feeling of faction warfare. I think that's what war mode is for.
Yeah.
If you want that, turn on war mode and go slaughter orcs in Ashenvale and have fun.
Oh. It seems like it's on my end because they both just cut off for me. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna take a look at this. I apologize for the tech issues. Okay, so you guys are still with me. All right. Give me a second. I'm gonna restart the Discord. I'll send you guys over to, take a look at some of the rewards here. Okay, let's take a look. I'm gonna change server. Oh, I see Hazel.
Did we
I see Perk. Okay,
did we
so
die
I
for a
lost
second?
you guys. Yes.
No.
The stream was still going and stuff, but the call just died for whatever reason. I just changed the server and you guys are now back.
Yay.
So yeah, I don't know what happened. I guess the war mode gods out there weren't very happy.
Yeah, you've got like some like diehard like Warcraft 3 like fantasy player being like, no, they must be
No.
Yeah.
They have to always fight. Yes, hey Hazel, you got cut there, but you were talking about the war mode things and how people who want war mode and want to clash things, they can decide to do so. And somewhere around there you got cut off.
The lore characters can work together, like
Exactly.
Jaina and Thrall can hang out and they can go fight for Sworn together. So why aren't we allowed to do that?
Yeah, no, it's a very good point, and that's another thing as well. The faction leaders can talk to each other and understand each other. Why can't we understand each other when we meet people like out in the wild? Why do we see Kek instead of lol when the faction leaders can understand each other? No, but I think it's a really interesting take, and Ian definitely seemed really open at the idea of potentially softening that line between the factions. He was talking about it from a perspective where it might be the only fix to balancing the raiding and Mythic Plus interest across the factions, because what is faction identity if you're forced to go a different faction to be able to play? Then you're not really living up to your faction identity anymore. What if you can still be for the Horde or for the Alliance? I guess in this case it's usually, what if you can still be for the Alliance, but you want to raid or Mythic Plus, so you go Horde? What if you can stay Alliance, but play with your Horde friends? I think that would definitely fix the social issue, which has sort of built over time of the game just starting off with the Horde racials being strong, but later on becoming more of a social question rather than a balance question.
Yeah, I think I got cut off talking about this after Hazel, but when the phone dropped. But I was saying that we've had so many Hall of Fames where the Horde is done and the Alliance is at like 10.
Oh yeah.
Kills, and it's like, okay, well, we've made the Alliance racials more appealing, we've made the allied races more exciting, we've made the Horde as the bad guys in BFA, and the Horde is still steamrolling the amount of Alliance groups. So everything we've tried isn't working, so we have to address the social angle, not like just like balance or in-game content that's available.
Yep.
Also what you're saying about Thrall and Jaina working together just seems to be a good time that the story has gotten more progressed, and it just, I think people are ready to play together. And I think quarantine also crystallized it. Like, Ian's answer at BlizzCon 2019 was before quarantine started, and as soon as it hit, everyone is at home, everyone is playing WoW. They're lonely, so they're actually really caring about groups. We've noticed on Wowhead, people are caring more about endgame things than they did previously because they, have more time, and like maybe it's more emotionally satisfying to do well at WoW if, you don't have control over anything else in your life. And maybe it just, as they're watching more and more people do raids and Mythic Plus more so than before, and they're realizing that, hey, we've got this problem, and people are really interested in our stuff, but this problem is sort of persisting and widening. I think that also maybe was a factor as to why they're taking it more seriously. Like the amount of people doing it has increased, and people really like Castle Nathria. They're like, this is an amazing raid, and it just sort of furthered the issue more than keeps growing and growing.
And most of the time we are raiding the same raid, right? Like there was like that special occasion with Battle for Dazar'alor where we had different bosses based on what faction we were. But generally speaking, we're fighting the same fights, so it would make sense that we would, fight them together. And he also mentioned the factions being less of a topic in PvP as well, like in Arena. Because you can be an alliance team.
It's always been that way.
Yeah. You can be an alliance team and you can fight alliance, and no one is questioning that. So, maybe it's time for PvE to also at some point become a possible cross faction.
Yeah,
I think that would fix a lot of the social issues with it.
Yeah, I did think sort of on like a bigger level, I thought I'm sure everyone is like really tired working from home, and BlizzConline, like as you're trying to push out a PTR, is difficult. But I did think it was funny how they asked the question and it wasn't really clear where Ian was going. So then they circled back and were like explicitly like, oh, so like, are you saying Alliance and Horde will never raid together? And then like it's like, oh, actually, I'm saying maybe they could. I just thought it was interesting how they had to like circle back 5 or 10 minutes later to like really drive home the answer. Maybe they didn't think enough people were, I don't know, picking up on it. Like another, oh, Archon isn't dead situation. We gotta clarify.
Yeah.
I think, did anything else stand out with the Q&A before we move on to Flying and Renown? As to like questions you thought were sort of controversial or surprising. Again, my just comment is split out Shadowlands and Classic. I thought it was a bit like weird going back and forth with such like different, specialized topics.
I also noticed quite a few people giving the feedback on potentially splitting up the Q&A to be like art and lore potentially, and then more of like system and gameplay kind of thing, because that again is also sometimes two separate audiences, so mixing them in between each other, you can see that one side of them is frustrated to have to listen to this other question. So I think maybe that's also something that Blizzard could think about in the future, to split them up so that people know when the questions that they're interested in will be around.
Definitely. I think the Q&A could have worked better if they structured it as to like, okay, here's 15 minutes on like Shadowland systems, and then we're going to talk about like the fluffy stuff, and then we're going to into like, classic stuff, have it be more broken down. Because I was like, I'm live blogging, and I'm like, okay, we're done with the Shadowlands segment. I'm like, no, wait, we're back to Shadowlands.
Yeah, exactly. Especially because they do plan the questions beforehand, so they should be able to plan that together to make it a bit more structured.
Yeah. I do say, Scott Johnson, I think, did a great job moderating it virtually. And also, if you liked Ian kind of vibing out, I think that is a Twitch emote now on Better Twitch TV. So you can have Ian kind of like moving out if you want him to.
Wait, I haven't seen that emote. I need to see it. I'll take a look after the show. That's funny.
But yeah, any other thoughts on the Q&A, Hazel, before we jump into Flying?
No, I don't think I have anything to add there. I think Butt covered it.
Cool. So yeah, Flying and Renown, very interesting topic. As has been said like a billion times before, I think first actually on a interview you had back in 2020, flying is coming in 9-1. It does not take reputation. They confirmed that it is tied to the Covenant campaign, which, as we've now seen, you unlock as you get more renown. So you probably won't be able to like grind this out week 1, but probably over several weeks. Don't have to do anything fancy like 500 world quests on the side. I have seen some confusion about this, so I wanted to bring it up. One interview said that 40 more renown levels were coming, so people like decided that you were gonna get flying at 80 renown, and I'm like, no, like even the 9-0 Covenant campaign ended before 40, so it's probably gonna be the same thing here. Like you're not gonna have to, do 40 weeks of the Covenant campaign to like unlock flying.
Yeah.
So just wanted to clarify that. And also it was account wide and you can fly at 50. So
it makes leveling easier.
Yeah. So I don't really have a problem with the campaign. I think that we'll have to see how many steps it is. Like obviously if it's gonna be like several months of a campaign, that might be too much. But it's I don't think it's going to be super elaborate. Like they always put the most elaborate long quest at the start of the expansion. So we got like 9 weeks of, I'm pretty sure they'll have it just be like a few weeks and then you can unlock flying.
Yeah. That's
like maybe
what I would guess as well.
Flying at like, I don't know, like 3 weeks in, and then like if you do 6 weeks of renown, then you get the mount, and then like 9 weeks of renown, you get the Covenant Pepe, and so on. So
yeah. Yeah, because people need to keep in mind that we now have renown, 30 plus, and the campaign ended at 20 something.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that the campaign is going to go on for another 40 renown.
Yeah. So not like too much to discuss there, but I just wanted to dispel rumors. And it's like, you can just like, you just say the word flying and like people that have not played WoW for years will just like come out of the woodwork and be interested. So, just had to say a little bit about flying.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely a relief that there's no surprise requirements. I've heard a lot of conversation among different communities that people are being like, well, what if you need the mob? What if you need Venari? What if you need exploration? What if you need lore master? Because we knew it was going to be tied to renown, but we didn't know if it was going to be just tied to renown. So I think having confirmation that that's it, and I would be very surprised if it was, like you're saying, too much Covenant campaign, given the reference point of 8.2, we, even with the rep grind, we were unlocking flying 2 to 3 weeks after the patch came out for Pathfinder Part 2 last time. And then given that the Covenant campaign is the same for each Covenant, and that's something that people are going to want to do, I imagine, on their alts to progress them. If it was a lot of questing, that's something that's going to burn people out quite quickly. So I'm guessing that it's going to be not crazy time intensive to do, even if it is time gated a little bit. So I would be surprised if it took longer than like 4 weeks or so, but that's just a guess.
Yeah.
Also comparing to BFA, one of the interviews was saying that they didn't plan on having the 9-1 raid be out like super late. Like they're just thinking like 2 to 3 weeks again after the patch launched, and the Covenant campaign might be continuing after the raid opened. So I imagine something similar, like we were unlocking flying around the time Eternal Palace opened, and if the raid is meant to come out pretty quickly after 9-1, then to me it makes sense that flying would pop up around that same time period.
Yeah. I would also guess around that time frame. I have a cat in front of me. I think the tail was visible there for a second. But I think that time frame of just about maybe up to a month is probably when we would get the flying, especially when they're hyping it up now before 9-1 is even mentioned. So, I mean, the 9-1 date even mentioned. So hyping something like that before the date and then also extending it by a few months would feel like a bit mean. I do think it would be, shortly after the patch release.
Yeah. Another topic that came up in interviews that I mentioned a little bit that I was excited about. I don't need to do a deep dive because I know it's a little lore related, but I just wanted to say that I think it's really cool. Maybe see what your perspective is as, you know, people that aren't as into the lore but probably are still like, oh yeah, Frostmourne, where did it come from? Is a few of the interviews mentioned that we're going to see the Dreadlords in patch 9.1, which you know, they don't really seem to fit the vibe of Shadowlands, but there's like that book, there's a book in Revendreth that really strongly hints that the Dreadlords create a lot of the cosmic problems in the past. Like they tricked Sargeras into thinking that he had to like obliterate all the planets. They were trying to cause chaos in the Virgin Legion. There was the Holy Dreadlord was like a, you know, double agent in Argus. Lots of stuff like that. So if we're seeing the Dreadlord in this secret zone, it kind of like really ties together the theory that the jailer used the Dreadlords as agents to, you know, weaken all the other cosmic planes, and explains how the Burning Legion got their hands on the Helm of Domination and Frostmourne. So I just think all that stuff is super interesting and kind of, you know, almost solves one of those mysteries. Did that reveal had any like interest to you guys? I'm just curious because like I was like really excited to find the book, but I'm really into the lore. But you know, like were you just like, oh, like that's weird? Why is a Dreadlord in like the Maw? Or you just like,
Do you have any comments on that, Hazel?
I would be lying if I said I was super invested. I know that Denathrius had Dreadlord ties if he's not a Dreadlord himself. There's something going on there.
yeah.
So I figured we would explore more of that at some point, and it's just interesting to see how they can work that back in and tie up some loose ends without bringing us back into the Legion aesthetic, which I don't think anybody's ready to do again just yet, but to kind of show that they were planting seeds quite early for the things that are happening now.
Yeah, I'm not huge into lore either, so I'm lacking lots of knowledge to make these kind of things as exciting as they can be. But I also find it really interesting and cool how they do use even these little things like books in the game to cover lore that actually does mean a lot and ties things together. I think that is really cool. So yeah, so can't say like super excited as as you put it as well, but I think it's really interesting though.
Yeah, I think it's cool how they, you know, took something that was maybe like, you know, pretty convoluted and kind of mysterious and just badass sounding from early WoW, and then it's like, well, how do we iron this out and have it be cohesive and make sense? Like they, you know, a sword just can't mysteriously appear, you know, with the Burning Legion and make its way to, you know, Arthas. And I'm pretty sure the jailer did not exist in their minds as like, you know, 30 years ago. It's not some like long, you know, long game 3D chess. So I think it's cool how they're trying to build out the world and, you know, give backstories for some things that maybe sounded cool, but when you poked at it, didn't, you know, really make a ton of sense or, you know, aged well 20 years since the item or character was first announced. So, yeah, I think it's cool, and I was sort of, it actually ties into why they're, you know, having things like the Helm of Domination on sale. Like we keep learning more and more about these items. So I think it's neat. So before we discuss TBC Classic a little, I just want to go quick rapid fire. Like, what were some smaller things that you heard at BlizzCon that you were like, oh, like I think this is cool, but I think maybe people are like sleeping on it. So like 3 things that I thought of were that the Torghast death counter mechanic is going to be replaced with a system that rewards you based on like partial progress.
They mentioned
that,
potentially having like a score or rating for it. I think that sounds really cool. And with that, remove the death counter, which I'm assuming they got lots and lots of feedback of how daunting that feels like to be in there, spend hours, and then not be able to complete it, maybe not hours, but you know, a long time, and then come out with nothing. So instead they're making it a sort of continuous progression instead of just losing everything just because he didn't complete it.
Yeah, I think in the interview Ian was like, you know, not finishing Torghast and like losing your soul ash is like one of the worst feelings in WoW. Like it was really strong language.
Yeah, I noticed that. It was.
I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I think it's a really good idea for them to reward partial progress, so you can eliminate that scenario of you spending actually hours sometimes in there and then not getting what you came for. But I am concerned about the first hints that they mentioned about the score system. He was saying things like, well, how efficiently can you do it? How quickly can you do it? And I right now, I actually really like the current model of Torghast, where you can go and spend a very long time, and as long as you beat the last boss, then it's time well spent, because it can kind of incentivize exploring every last corner and, looting every last little bit of Phantasma. And having the patience and the time to do that, it felt kind of like a relaxing contrast to Mythic Plus, where you are fighting against a timer and trying to do things very efficiently to fit your trash killed metric. And what I don't want to see is Torghast become another Mythic Plus. So I'm curious to see how they can implement that score system without kind of making me feel like I now need to change the way that I play it to optimize. But unless they're adding more legendaries or letting us equip more of them or letting this significantly upgrade the ones that we have, there's not going to be a lot of incentive for people to go back into Torghast, even with the new content.
Yeah, I mean,
we're waiting on.
We asked them, are there more Twisting Corridor rewards, or are there going to be rewards for the Chorus of the Dead event, other things, and they said that they weren't really focused on that at the current time, nothing really to share. So I don't think there's going to be another, big incentive to do Torghast. We also asked about how many legendaries you could equip if you could do 2 in the future, and they said that sounds cool and they want to do more, but again, nothing to share quite yet. I didn't think that was a 9-1 focus.
I think your points are actually really good, Hazel. I didn't think about that. A rating and score system which could potentially, pressure you to play in a certain way to do well. Because that would be another Mythic Plus, like you said, and that wouldn't be good at all. When I read it, my initial reaction to it was, oh, that's awesome, that's great. Because I was thinking that maybe they have a sort of maybe a leaderboard of some sort going on where people can compete to have the fastest times. But if they keep it as it is now, where there is no reward of loot or anything like that, then it could be for pure fun, which reminds me of how challenge modes used to be back in the day. So maybe they would use that as a form of people competing with each other for fun to get on a leaderboard. But if it does lead to changes in what your loot is, then that wouldn't be good, because we don't want another Mythic Plus. The part that I love about Torghast was because I would spend hours in there, because I would check every single corner. I kill every little mob, every little Marat. I like exploring everything. So if there's some kind of pressure on having to do it in time to get the soul ash that you want, that would be really bad. It would change the way that you play, which isn't very fun. But having the leaderboard option as a thing, if you want to sort of speedrun, then I think that would be a cool alternative gameplay for people.
I'd also be concerned about class balance, because right now, yes, they're doing a lot of anima tuning for 905, but at the start, some classes just felt really bad in Torghast, especially if you got the wrong anima powers. So I think that maybe the maximum amount of words should be capped, so it's not like, oh well, if I want to do Torghast, I need to play it on this spec, because I can I have the ability to clear it a minute faster, and then I can get more soul ash or something. Especially if you can do Torghast with groups as well. You don't want it to be like Torghast is a new Mythic Plus where it's the meta speed clearing Torghast group to maximize your rewards.
Yeah, that's interesting, because having groups as well really complicates things. At first I was thinking, well, just a different leaderboard for every class, but then there's groups as well, and I don't know how that's gonna be.
Yeah. Another little detail I thought, that I think was this in the Q&A, I'm not sure, but maybe it got overshadowed with customization. I thought it was interesting how they said that they didn't have much planned for Sire Denathrius, he just was gonna die in Castle Nathria, and they really liked the voice actor's performance, and the community's reaction was really hype, so they decided not to kill him off, and now he's in the sword, and he's gonna be very likely sticking around in the future. And they mentioned things like, oh, we see the social media, we see the memes, so it kind of feels cool to know that players can kind of shape the story. And they've also mentioned that for Bronsamdi as well, that, you know, he was just such a fun character that they expanded his role, and now, you know, he's like the focus of the Night Fate campaign. So I thought that was like a fun little side detail, that, you know, everyone's memes made a difference. We saved him.
Yeah, we saved him. Maybe we could have saved Devos. No,
Yeah.
that's great though. That means that they sometimes change things based on people's reactions, and that's awesome. Makes things feel more fluid.
Yeah. Covenant Pepe is another small thing, only mentioned in an interview. Very important, like most important reward of 9-1 Covenant Pepes.
I got some pictures from the community.
Yeah, people like love Pepe, even though they're not selling him on the gear shop anymore, which to me doesn't make sense. But yeah, they love Pepe. Yeah, and you know, people have been making their own versions of Covenant Pepes, and some of these were actually featured on the live stream. So lots of inspiration out there, similar to the fan art for the Wandering Ancient. Now people really want Pepe. And then finally, my final like little thing, and I'd love to hear if you had any different ones. There was a really long Thrall history of Thrall panel that talked a lot about the past, but there were hints that we were going to see like some closure on Garrosh's story with Thrall in the future, as well as a reunion or like actual face-to-face with his mom, Draka, in the future. So I thought that was pretty interesting, and maybe some people wouldn't, you know, listen through the whole hour-long panel, but you know, I thought that was pretty hype, and it would explain why they devoted an entire hour to discussing Thrall, who maybe doesn't seem as important on the surface as, like, you know, Anduin or Sylvanas. But if there are big things in store for Thrall, it explains why they, you know, devoted so much time to him.
Thank you for reminding me, because I need to watch that panel still. I missed some of the later panels because it got so late in EU, but I need to catch up on those, so I need to watch that one.
Yeah. But yeah, did anything stand out to you guys that were like, oh, you know, I thought this was awesome, but like no one's talking about it with Shadowlands? Or, you know, like I thought I was really just disappointed by this, and no one is, you know, concerned about this on the flip side.
Yeah, not really. I think that everything they didn't show anything too unexpected, and I guess maybe I was a little disappointed that it wasn't more surprising, but I can't be that disappointed because, you know, the major beats that were shown look pretty good. I'm generally a wait and see type with new content. I don't like to form opinions too early about anything that sounds inflammatory, because often by the time that you get it out, you realize that it's not quite what it looked like. But it seemed pretty safe, honestly. It seemed like a pretty safe announcement. They didn't really do anything too spicy.
Yeah, maybe because it was, you know, limited resources, and also everything was for free. They try to like keep it, you know, greatest hits eye candy, while at, you know, BlizzCon proper, they could do panels that maybe aren't as popular, but because everyone is paying for it, like, you know, the hardcore people will tune in and the money will make it worth it. Like, you know, maybe at BlizzCon we would get like a Valor Points deep dive, but here with limited slots and, you know, being free and trying to reach as many people at home, maybe that was like less it didn't fit the vibe of what they were going for.
Something else that I thought was interesting was that I think it was Ian who was talking at the time, was talking about how the systems are feeling pretty good in Shadowlands. That was one of the issues with BFA, how after each patch they had to add something new for things to feel more complete, and then, you know, in the end we had corruption. But now with, you know, a huge system being introduced in the first patch, you know, with the soulbinds and the conduits and, you know, everything that builds up a character, covenant abilities, it sounded like Blizzard were pretty happy with the basis of this, and maybe that's also why.
Actually, this was something that was an interview, like talking about small things. I think like one interview mentioned something called empowered conduits, where like the conduits, like, you know, empower your soulbind abilities, like, and they're more interesting. So that was kind of a sleeper thing that I I didn't even ask about, because I only noticed it after we did our Q&A, but that seems like it could be potentially very interesting from a systems perspective. And,
Yeah,
again,
indeed.
transform how you use the older abilities if they do something pretty radical.
So that's another really good point of, why was that not shown as a presentation? I guess because they're just far from final.
Yeah.
But it does sound interesting. I think I missed that part as well, but people were asking me in my chat about it, and I was like, wait, what? Empowered conduits? That sounds really cool.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll get more information on that once 9:05 has hit.
Yeah. So yeah, why don't we talk about TBC a little? I know, Annie, like, you were keeping up rating on retail and classic on the same time for a while. So yeah, as anticipated over the past year, it was announced, surprise. And what I thought, obviously, I mean, we've had so many shows being like, oh, look, TBC is probably coming. I was really happy to hear about some changes, because
Me too.
I think that the general appeal of classic kind of like started really high, and then when like 2 hit, it just, you always have the hardcore people, logging out, keeping their raid buff, speedrunning, but I think that the casual crowd lost interest, and it became very it wasn't the original vibe of classic, even if it was like technically a replica. And I think that it's exciting they're considering some changes to keep the game healthier. Knowing that people view the game differently now with like their modern min-maxing sophisticated perspective. Like, I think it's really good that they purposely made the Horde Paladin seal OP. So now they're like, well, we don't want to just start off with things being imbalanced, so we're going to give the seals to both Alliance and the Horde, which is really funny in light of like, all the discussion with certain Covenant abilities being OP. It's like, well, if they want to balance this in Burning Crusade, why can't, shouldn't I be able to, swap Covenants or have access to multiple things? For different perspectives. But yeah, what did you think, Annie, of the some changes, and like, are you excited to try out TBC, or are you going to focus more on retail after classic and some challenges with that?
No, I'm really excited to try TBC. Like you said, I was raiding classic weekly at some point for a really long time. I actually only stopped when Nax came out. At that point, it became a little bit harder to raid log, so to speak, because the raid was a lot harder than the previous raids, and it's also difficult to keep up 40 people being interested in playing classic, especially when you're not playing it full time. So it kind of, and it was also at the same time as Shadowlands came out, so I kind of liked to prioritize Shadowlands at that point. But I hope that Blizzard does release the TBC not at the same time as a major patch of Shadowlands, because that way I can still enjoy both of them, because I'm really excited. I want to level ASAP, potentially have 2 characters, like 1 DPS character and 1 healing character, and just experience TBC, because I'm a Wrath baby. I started late. I never actually experienced TBC. I obviously feel some of the things from leveling in the TBC areas in Wrath, but I never had the real experience of it. Shazra was always a dead city for me, and I always found it quite an interesting one with the Scryer and Aldor thing going on. And I'm really excited to try it out, and I think the hashtag some changes thing is a good thing, because it feels like a bit more polished, but not like completely sort of retail either. It's still the old game. Tuning will still be the old game. Like you mentioned, the Paladin change, and then we have the leatherworking drums were also talked about. How it kind of forces people to go leatherworking. That might be a bit too much. Yeah. And one other thing that I thought was really interesting with hashtag some changes was they are potentially unexpectedly deciding to keep the bosses as the pre-nerf versions, because they decided, or they know that we have so much more experience than we did back then. So it could be interesting to have these bosses at a higher difficulty that may not have been down at the time pre-nerf, and so we get that experience. So it'll still feel somewhat hard, and I think that's really, really awesome. So I am definitely excited about it. I wanted to ask Hazel, did you play much Classic at all? And yes or no, it doesn't matter. Do you plan on then going on to TBC as well?
I played a little Classic. It was a very, very popular request. I think that when Classic was coming out, the hype around it was massive and like very difficult to avoid. So I played it, and I never finished leveling was the thing. I have, I think, 3 different characters that are all about 25, and that's as far as I ever made it. So
yeah,
I enjoyed it, but I kind of liked sort of just running around and leveling with no intention of ever getting to 60 because it made it very low pressure and let me enjoy the world a little better. I don't know if I will play TBC, and I think it's going to be contingent on what the boost situation looks like, because there was a note on the FAQ section of the TBC page about if you don't have a level 60 and you want to play with your TBC friends, we might be able to get a boost for one character on the account to 58, so you're caught up and can play. But there were details missing. They said that, price and availability to be determined, and if that's not free, I don't know that I would spend money to boost a character that I'm going to play for like a weekend when it comes out just to be part of the rush, but then not continue playing it. I'm a Wrath baby as well, but I admire your tenacity to raid in 2 games.
Yeah,
I don't think I can do it.
I started in vanilla, so it was always weird, like, watching the Classic raid streams and seeing things fall over because, I was someone that would, like, spend a lot of my weekends, doing the raids on my bad computer and, helping farm up the nature resistance gear and the consumables, and then in, Burning Crusade, always, clearing Black Temple, hoping I finally finished my Warglaive set, which I never did until Ice Crown came out. And it was definitely weird, having memories of how vanilla was and being like, well, this looks the same in Classic, but just, things are falling over and it's like min-max so differently. It just didn't give off the same feeling. So I'm hoping that by, tailoring TBC slightly differently, it will give off a more like authentic, fresh vibe than trying to make it like a museum replica. And, like it would be really weird. Like I was really proud of like my guild, clearing through Sunwell and getting, Kill Jaden down. And I was always the rogue on like the exposed armor duties because they didn't have the full Warglaive. So I had to do like utility things. So it just would feel weird to like, I don't know, watch things like just fall over with one shots like that. That's not the feeling of, Burning Crusade for me. It's more like trying really hard and like spending time. So I'm glad there's an element of difficulty. While also being like, yeah, if people realized back then with their rudimentary theory crafting that leatherworking drums were good, like now you're gonna just it's gonna be like 10 times worse now that people actually do things with math and min-max.
Everything is min-maxed, so if you need 4 leather workers per group to keep it up 100% uptime, then
don't forget the
shaman. Have to do it.
Because like the shaman totem twisting was very important to further optimize the drums, because the drums stacked with haste, so it was like crazy when you had heroism pop. I need to AFK for a second because the mailman, I think, dropped off an expensive package and I don't want someone to like walk away with the laptop. So you guys can keep talking about stuff and I will be right back.
Okay, sounds good. So you were also a Wrath baby. I feel like most people in the industry are like playing since vanilla. So it's cool to have another Wrath baby here. So I'm pretty excited to try it, but I do understand how it's not really worth spending the money if you end up maybe not even leveling, right? Because you get the boost to 58, and then maybe you'll get to 59 or 60, and then can't even touch the TBC content. Might as well play Classic then. I completely understand that. It's a very slow game.
It's exciting though. There's so many people, like people were excited about Classic, but there were so many people that had even more nostalgia for this era. I am very curious about the fact that they are now, they have a system in place, like they have a plan for how to upgrade Classic characters to TBC and then have some remaining Classic era. if 2-3 years down the line, if there's any possibility of them doing that again and then coming out with Wrath servers, I feel like that might be where it ended. I cannot imagine classic Cataclysm.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just not enlightened enough. That would be wild. But
I don't think so either.
I wonder if they would do it again.
Because I feel like the sort of trilogy, the trio of Vanilla, TBC, and Wrath was always very special to people, and a lot of people see Cataclysm as like, because it changed the world so much as well. The world and game mechanics, got rid of the complicated talent system and all sorts of things in the game. For a lot of people, this is when WoW died in a way. So it would be very strange if we suddenly get Cataclysm Classic. Welcome back, Perk.
Talking about the leak image of like Cataclysm.
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, I don't
think they'll do that. I think they'll stop with Wrath, but I guess we'll see.
Something that I would be curious about, which I think some people asked for, and a lot of changes were hinting at it, were the possibility of a classic fresh server where it seems strange that you can like clone yourself and stay on classic, but you can't do anything new. But I think it'd be really interesting if there were like, I don't know, classic seasons, or if you could do the classic experience and do molten core now that, spell batching is in, or maybe they could solve the world buff problem. Which, by the way, I wish someone had asked about that. But just it's so weird and to me counterproductive to how classic was meant to be played, that the best way to play classic is to log off as soon as you get a world buff.
The best way to play is to not play.
And I remember, I think in Chinese servers, they were testing something where, anyone could speak to an NPC and get, an Oni buff or something. So I think it would be cool to do a version of Classic where they sorted that out so you could actually play Classic, I
agree.
I think they did say that if the launch went well, they would consider going back and doing cool stuff for Classic. But yeah, to me, I'm really curious about that, because it doesn't really make sense why you just want to stay on Classic and not have anything to play. But yeah.
And how important were the world buffs going into TBC? Is it a similar gameplay thing going on?
I think that they were definitely... I'm trying to look back. I definitely remember that there was still a lot of min-maxy stuff, especially with Sunwell. You could have... Oh, that's what I think you could have billions of consumables active at once, I think, at the start.
Oh, because the cap is gone for TBC?
Yeah, I can't remember. I think maybe I thought they introduced elixir categories and flasks and stuff. And I think it was definitely a big deal that you wanted to have certain elixirs stacked with flasks as well. More so than modern WoW.
Yeah, because I'm wondering if it's going to be a similar thing there with TBC, where it becomes a log off because of world buff situation. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think that even if the world buffs are not exactly the same, then they should be very careful of similar mechanics that could encourage people not to play the game. I did pull up a thread, and I think that they were not a thing in TBC rating. They got nerfed really hard.
Okay.
And
they'll probably take the nerfed version then.
Yeah, it was a stat rating system that didn't affect level 70 characters.
Gotcha.
The Oni head buff did not affect players higher than level 63. I think that the Dark Moonfair buffs still really worked. So that could be something.
That's okay, because that's 1 week of the month.
Yeah. I think also in 2.0 there was some weird stuff you could do with mass soul stoning, which shouldn't be an issue because they're using the version of 2.4.3. So any weird class balance president launch should not be in that version of the game.
Yeah, no, it does feel like TBC will feel not annoying. I guess is the good way to put it. Because they're keeping it similar to how it was, but remove the annoying aspects of things and still keep it hard. Because with Classic, as you said, they have the nerfed versions of the bosses. Everything was just falling over, and now they're giving the pre-nerf versions, and they did point out that, hey, like if it does turn out to be really difficult, we will consider nerfing bosses, which is really cool because this is old content. And they're keeping that in mind, that they may need to nerf bosses because we don't know how easy it'll be for us with all this knowledge the past 10-15 years.
As usual, this didn't have a release date, just 2021, but they did say that the beta was very soon, so I hope that there's a lot of good feedback, actually, where people are like, hey, I think that, there's like a weird buff you can get when you, turn in the garage quest in the Grand. I can see people raid logging to preserve this buff, or, there's this other thing I think people will fight over, or this boss is falling over. I think that people can see where Classic failed and maybe try to give feedback during the beta so TBC has more like longevity and is more welcome for players.
Yeah, I definitely think that they're learning a lot from Classic and putting that in consideration going forward with TBC, which is nice to see. Also, I have a little list here for you guys to see the plans with the phasing. We have the 5 phases here, and then the corresponding arena seasons below there as well. Just in case you guys want to take a quick screenshot or just a mental image of how the phases will look like with the different raids and the seasons.
Yeah. So we mentioned at the start the charity pet, and I think it would be good to highlight now because they dropped the charity pet right before like all the Shadowlands and Diablo news, and I think everyone forgot about the pet system. But yeah, I think it would be good to highlight them. So charity battle pets. We didn't have any pets in 2020, which felt a little weird, especially with everything being horrible. It seemed like a good time to have a charity. But they are sort of reworking the system for 2021, which is interesting. And you can donate you donate to Doctors Without Borders just on your own, and when a goal is met, everyone playing retail WoW gets Bananas, who's from the trading card game, as a battle pet. And then if we reach a stretch goal, then everyone gets the pet Daisy the Sloth, who sits on your back. So it's this is different where you have like a month to buy one specific battle pet, and then all money in that time period goes to the charity, and then like nothing after that. This seems to be more like a Kickstarter type deal where you can donate to it over a longer period, and you unlock stretch goals. So I'm okay with this. We get 2 pets instead of 1. I think that Bananas from Through the Dark Portal TCG expansion is like interesting. It's good timing with Burning Crusade Classic. And Daisy the Sloth looks super cute, and she sits on your back.
The sloth is a new pet, right?
Yeah, it's new pet and new tech. Like normally, I don't think there's a pet that sits on your back before.
No.
We're actually trying to figure out, Stevan today is like, how can I get this pet to show up in the Wowhead model viewer?
Crackers would sit on your shoulder, and I think that's the closest thing I can think of. The Captain Crackers, the shop pet. You can whistle at it.
Yeah, that's true.
So what are your thoughts on this system as opposed to the old system?
Do you wanna comment, Hazel?
Sure. I at first was kind of confused as to why they would change it, just because it's been the way it has been for a very long time, and it's an odd shift to give the pet to everybody, even if they had not donated, and also having them be as stretch goals and having the new pet that's really cute be as the second one kind of brings to mind the odd scenario of, well, what if not enough money is donated, and then you go, well, never mind, no sloth for you. It seems like they're very much expecting to hit that goal. But the thing that I had not considered until you mentioned it was this does eliminate that awkward thing where the donations are over and the charity pet is still on the shop and people still buy it, but then Blizzard just gets that money.
Right.
It kind of eliminates that weird kind of confusion where people might be confused about where their money is going depending on when they bought the pet. This way, we know that it's benefiting the cause directly. And it'll still be a limited time thing where it'll be proof that you play during this time. So I think it's good. I'm curious to see how it goes.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll like try to raise events around it, like oh, like I'm sure there'll be like streamer activations or probably like charity streams where maybe people give out like battle pets, to encourage people to donate, and like a big weekend push or something, and seeing how many percentage points you can get over a weekend. But yeah, I mean, I think that I'm glad to see that the program wasn't canceled, because like 2020 was so bad that it felt a little weird. We didn't have any charity support to support like anything going on in the world. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad to see it's returned, and maybe it has some more polish this time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And maybe we will see the Daisy tech used on more things.
Yeah. That is normally how it happens, right? Different promotions showing some new tech, and then maybe an expansion later we see it in game as well.
Yeah, like the recruiter friend backpack was then used for Rathian, and then the Covenant armor back pieces.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. And then we're seeing more back pieces that are special now in Shadowlands, like the different Covenant ones from the rare drops.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting new system. At first, I wasn't sure if I liked it, but thinking about it more made me realize that maybe it could work. And you pointing out the thing with how awkward it is that the pet would stay in the store and would just, kind of be continuous money for Blizzard. Maybe that felt a bit odd as well. So I think this is an interesting one. And the fact that the real new pet is behind a stretch goal kind of implies that Blizzard will probably do their best also to promote this a lot to make sure that we reach it. So yeah, I think, I think it could work.
Is a big deal too, because he was from one of the earlier trading card game expansions, and you can only get him now on the black market auction house, and people have paid lots of money for him. So there are probably some people that are, maybe some people that are like, oh, rip, I paid a lot of money, now everyone's getting him for free, but probably more people are happy that, you could actually get this, pet already.
Is it going to be the exact same identical one then? Not like some kind of copy with a new name or something?
I think it's gonna be the same one. Also, to be fair, the baby ape is like really similar.
Yeah.
So, but it's just like the it's like the specialness of being like, well, I have the one with the rarer name type thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, before we talk about some community highlights, I was just curious overall, like not just WoW, but every other. There were like no time frames with anything, whether it was the charity pet we were just talking about, 9.1, 9.05, TBC Classic, Diablo Immortal, Diablo Resurrected. There were no release dates for anything, and normally this time when you get the release date. So what did you guys think about that?
You can go ahead.
I imagine, so we had a Shadowlands release date. And then we had another Shadowlands release date.
Mm-hmm.
And that can't have been fun for anybody. So I'm guessing that even though they've adapted very well to making content while working from home, with the fluidity of current times, and I'm imagining they don't want to make promises they can't keep, and they just must not be ready to make any promises yet. That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah. And I think one of them, I forgot who it was who said it, but he specified that it's going to, on the topic of 9.05, he said that's here next month. And he specified like sometime next month, maybe you can even guess when, but we don't want to say a date because we want to make sure that the patch will be ready. So I think they definitely feel a lot of pressure on the date, probably after, Shadowlands being delayed afterwards.
Yeah, I was a little concerned because the PTR patch notes were definitely like, this is planned for March, but then in some of the interviews, it was getting a little more abstract, like, we want it to be soon, but we'll see how it goes on the PTR. And I was like, oh, like that's a little too vague for my taste. I also wonder if like they didn't really plan on a 9.05, but then when they realized that working from home took longer than expected, like, complications with getting feedback and like spontaneous reactions, if they realized that they needed a 9.05 to solve some of the more urgent issues and keep people hyped. Because in that interview Wowhead had with Ian back in October, we were like, has the pandemic affected the patch release schedule for the first major patch? And, Ian was like, well, with how everything got sorted out with delays, like, he's like, I don't think there'll be, he's like, I think that the first content patch will, come out at a good, fast pace that will make people happy. And it seems like 9.1 might be not exactly coming out at a fast pace. So, maybe they realize that, just stuff in general takes longer. Or I've seen a lot of people as well being like, gee, when you crunch really hard on something and you push hard and then you're stuck at home quarantining, like your mental health and productivity like takes a big burnout toll, more so than usual. So, maybe there's still like I've seen lots of content creators, lots of people not even in the gaming industry feeling like super burnt out after, that holiday like work push. And maybe there's some of that at Blizzard as well. Like, we killed ourselves getting Shadowlands out and we couldn't, rest up properly, see family, go out, celebrate, and we're kind of running on fumes, just trying to get patch stuff out ASAP as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can imagine planning BlizzConline was probably pretty stressful too, because I was in the middle of Shadowlands coming out over the holidays and deciding what's going to be on the show, what is worthy putting up. They probably even considered putting some of the system things as a topic, but then maybe decided against it. So I can imagine a lot of people working at Blizzard after this weekend feeling very relieved that it's over in a way, so that they could get back into track or get back on track on things without feeling the pressure of deadlines.
Yeah. But yeah, I just want to say, like, even though we're saying that we wish BlizzConline could have like covered other things or been different, it was still like a massive effort.
Oh yeah.
Especially, like working from home and having to launch an expansion while planning BlizzConline. Especially with the reduced community support after layoffs a few years ago, seems very, very challenging.
Indeed. But yeah, I think we can now jump into some community highlights.
Yeah, I put this section in the notes just because, obviously BlizzCon is like a promotional tool to get the word out on products, but they did a lot of like personal touches that, they didn't have to do. It just was, people, I got the impression that, these are people that really cared about BlizzCon, the convention, and the community aspect, and they did a lot of really nice, touches that, just felt really authentic. And meaningful, that weren't just like, well, it was cool, but also, the marketing machine. So just wanted to like, recognize that awesome stuff for what it was. So I don't know what you guys saw, but I really liked the virtual art gallery. Like, I was extremely impressed by that. And I wish they did more stuff like this, because obviously it's cool to browse at BlizzCon, but this was like way more accessible if you, can't go to BlizzCon, or maybe you have like difficulties with like eyesight and you're at BlizzCon, but you can't like walk up to the artwork and zoom in, but now from home you can zoom in. So I thought it was a really awesome use of web design to set that up.
Yeah, 100%. And it also shows how much talent people have.
Yeah, and if you missed it, it's still up. Basically, like you go into a gallery for each game, and it's like you're immersed in the gallery with music playing related to the game, and the paintings are like hung on a wall, and the wall is decorated like the game with unique frames. So like WoW is very like Dalaran-ish, but Diablo has weapons and you're in a castle. And you can click on the art to enlarge it. Sometimes they have like read more with like little captions explaining the context. So if you like click on the Warcraft 3 art, it like brings up of the elf, it brings up all the other alternate art and like the history of all the races. They even have 3D models part of it, and I think that's super cool, because like that's a lot of art and talent, but it's not really recognized as much, especially when you have a traditional art gallery. So by having the virtual art gallery, you can actually have like a big model of Thrall plopped into the gallery, and you can click and zoom in. And I think it's really cool to include artists of different mediums that way, that maybe don't work as well in person.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, because 3D images would be a little bit difficult to show off when it's not done in a program like this.
Yeah. I also really like the cooking show with Lulaboo. The burger made me very hungry. I know Hazel that you like cooking things from the cookbook, so I'm curious if you were watching or if you plan on cooking things from the upcoming cookbook.
Yeah, I didn't catch that part of the stream, but I am very excited about new flavors of Azeroth just because Chelsea Monroe Castle does not miss. Every cookbook that she's done is just filled with absolute bangers. Like she doesn't everything turns out really well and they're accessible. And like we have the WoW cookbook and the Overwatch cookbook and the Hearthstone cookbook, and I've made pretty much everything 5 times over. So I'm just excited to have new content. That's not going to be out for a while. But I am really looking forward to having a copy of that to see what else she has cooked up, because it's one thing to bake and to make bread or dinner or whatever, but it's another thing when it's got just enough WoW theming to make it special occasion. It's fun.
Do you have your
I think
own
it'd be
cooking
interesting-
things uploaded, like as part of some of your content, or is it something that you've done just privately?
I used to do baking streams as part of my content. I used to do a monthly kitchen stream. I have since retired that series. I've downsized the equipment that was required for it, so I'm not doing those anymore. And
Yeah,
I'm
no,
making
that's
them on my
fair
own
enough.
time now.
Okay.
But there's records of it. A lot
Yeah.
of the recipes were good enough to get multiple episodes over the years. I'd make like the mana strudel in 2014 and again in 2017 and again in 2020 because it's just a really good recipe. And who does not like strudel?
Yeah, I think the caption of the book was also talking about Nomi playing a role, which I think would be interesting because he obviously he grew up and became a really bad chef. So I wonder if there'll be like, I know in the Overwatch book there was some like little lore Easter eggs tying the story together. So I wonder if I don't know, Nomi will like, I don't know, regain his love and talent for cooking over the course of this book. I'm also really curious to see if there will be any Shadowlands recipes, because some of the Shadowlands recipes are really messed up when you read the descriptions of them. Like they don't look very appetizing. Like fine fin piranha, or let's see, there was one, oh yeah, iridescent ravioli with applesauce.
The banana beef pudding actually is both a recipe, but it appears in the feast too. Like if you look at the model of the feast, there is a bowl of brown pudding with bananas in it.
Oh my
like cinnamon bonefish. I'm really curious what Feast of Gluttonous Hedonism would be like. But yeah, I can see this being a real challenge. I'm also always a fan of the cookbook because I heard her presentation at BlizzCon a few years ago, and people were asking how she would interpret them, and she's like, I would go to Wowhead to like read about all the components that Blizzard put into the recipe and like all the comments people were leaving on what the recipe reminded them of. So I thought that was like very cool, unexpected shout out.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. It's like taking something from the game and then creating it in real life. I think it's awesome.
Yeah. Another thing I thought was really cool was how you could print out virtual badges, because like that's always a big part of BlizzConline. Like BlizzCon, like you go, you get in, and then you just wait online forever and ever the day before, and then you pick up your badge and it has your character's name on it, and then you collect your collection of lanyards with badges. And like I was super excited when I got my first media badge. So now you could print out your own badge, which I just thought that was a really nice touch. Again, like, it's not, you're not making any money from this, but it's just really nice to have stuff like that, and like trivia cards and Zoom backgrounds as something part of the experience.
Yeah, I thought that was really sweet.
Need that,
considering.
but I really like that. Yeah.
Like Blizzard, considering the fact that a lot of people are at home, stuck on Zoom, whether it's for school or work or something else. And here, let me pull up a picture of it. So you've got all these options as backgrounds for Zoom, apparently.
Yeah, and I liked how, like, I know they've done community packets before with, like, trivia or, like, draw your own Pepe at home, but they didn't just recycle it. They were like, what do people need when they're working from home? Oh, they want, they need a Zoom background. Like that's something they weren't covering before. So I thought that, someone really cared about trying to make people feel, special this weekend.
Yeah.
And then finally, we've been highlighting a lot of merch at Wowhead. And we highlighted the helm on the show last week. We have some fun pictures of Brightpaw staring at the helm.
Oh yeah.
I do think that normally this is not a big buying season for consumers. Like, people do all their shopping in November and December, and then January and the first part of the year is like very austere. People don't buy a lot of stuff. So I think it's really interesting that I think it's still really good that Blizzard pushed to have a full line of merchandise for BlizzConline, even though it's not always a guarantee that people are going to buy large amounts of stuff. And I was really happy that they had tons of art prints, including classic art, because normally we've seen their art gallery for BFA and more modern times, but a lot of the older prints never had their moment to shine. But now you can get art of all the classic patch artwork, or different cinematic stills from Burning Crusade. So I think that's really nice that they're bringing back things that maybe you liked 15 years ago but were too poor to get something nice of, and now you can.
There's
did
lots
any
and lots of pictures.
Did any other community stuff stand out to you? I know I like the pet cosplay, the March of the Murlocs, lots of little things going on.
Nothing I can think of just like that, but it's so nice to see that there's so many things of community and just art being covered as well. Because I feel like that's the type of content that I love showing appreciation for. It's so nice to look at and to see how talented people are.
Yeah, I also don't have anything specific to call out. I am glad it still happened. To be completely honest, I think I felt the BlizzCon, the lack of BlizzCon blues back in November, and then all of this BlizzConline kind of kicked it back up again. So I actually didn't watch a lot of the community stuff because it was just really making me miss the BlizzCon that could have been.
Yeah.
I mean, it couldn't have been, but
Right.
it was tough to see the half measure, even though it was really nice that it happened. So I skipped a lot of it this year just to kind of try not to wallow too much.
Yeah.
I think it's really nice that everything is uploaded to YouTube so people can watch it whenever. So I don't know, maybe people can get together at the next BlizzCon in person, watch it all in person. But yeah, this sort of brought me to my next topic. What was it like covering BlizzCon, as content creators from home? Because it was really weird for me. I spent the whole time on a Discord call with my coworkers, live tweeting while giving them assignments to write, because normally we'd be in the same room, a hotel room in the Hilton, and now we weren't. And it ended, and it's okay, I'm gonna hang up the Discord call, and it felt mega weird because I'm okay, my adrenaline is crashing. I feel so restless. Normally I'd go down to the Hilton lobby and have a drink and celebrate, and then the Wowhead team would go out for a steak dinner, and there'd be loud music. And this time I just was okay, I have restless energy, but I feel loopy, so I guess I'll just walk around the block 10 times because I don't trust myself to cross the street, but I also have restless energy, so I can't sit still. It was a very weird jumble of emotions, and I'm definitely even still feeling it a bit today, where I feel I'm a little, tired and out of it from that emotional release.
It was also funny because I saw people tweeting as a joke, kind of, taking picture of Hilton, anyone coming down, and I remember that being such a thing on Twitter, because people always ask hey, is anyone going to the Hilton lobby now? Is anyone going here now? And you just Twitter is so, at least for me, I would be on Twitter a lot during conventions because that's the main way to reach all the people. And some people are taking pictures where they're together as well. Some, we're hanging just outside here, and there's a group picture of them. It's obviously not from this year, which was a little bit sad, but still funny at the same time. But yeah, I think I definitely see the way that you described as well, how when you shut it off, it's just over. You know, there is no going to IHOP when you're like drunk 5 a.m. in the morning. You know, all those things as well going on. It's instead a show, and then it's kind of like over. You know,
yeah,
it's
like there's a lot of stress, but then like when you are hanging out with people you like, it helps like ride the stress wave. And like you can look out for each other as you're like sort of tired, but like you're still having a good time. And you know, a lot of people feel like their batteries are recharging even if you're not working the convention. It's still like, you know, very like affirmative to be around people you like and celebrating, you know, either as a fan or someone working. And that angle is missing. So I'm just like trying to be like really like nice to myself and not like push myself, because I'm like, hey, like normally you'd be crashing at this point while like doing something really nice and hanging out with friends, and you don't have that this year. So, you know, yeah.
How did it feel for you, Hazel?
Yeah, it's lonely. It's hard because the convention is really it's a mixed bag, because it's so fun and it's so recharging to be around people that are so excited about the games that they've gone there just to turn up in theme. But on the other side of it, there is something very strong to be said for watching the presentation at my desk with a pot of tea and like my tabs open so I can make notes as I'm watching the presentation for the first time. And then, you know, like you got your blanket, you got your cat, you're at home, you're not jet lagged. Not that I ever was, I'm in the same zone, but you know, you're not sleep deprived, you're not hungover.
Are you talking about me?
You're just kind of, yeah, you're not jet lagged. It's just kind of, it was easier to make. It was easier to make the video, like it was easier to cover it because I had all my tools and I was kind of in the mode for it. But it was sad because it was the one social thing that you get once a year, and then it's rough when you miss it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that with how passionate like fans can be, it's, you know, it's mostly positive, but then there's the double-edged sword where, you know, like you have people always, you know, like the loudest commenters that are always upset about something. And I think that seeing people being positive and welcoming in person is always like a good periodic reminder that it's not just like an angry mob online, especially in the last years people have been really tense. So you know, I think that you know, with BlizzConline, it's like it was sort of the reverse, where it was like very internet. So it's like the echo chamber of, you know, people upset online was maybe louder, like the opposite of BlizzCon, where it's more like, oh, I'm, you know, live blogging in person with my friends and people are coming up to me and saying thank you. And like that never happens when you, you know, work online and you're always just moderating, you know, fights breaking out. So, you know, I definitely miss that angle and sort of reality check that, you know, there are more things than just people screaming at you online loudly.
Yeah. And I think also it's a big part of what I miss from events is meeting with other content creators, because a lot of times you feel like you can understand each other better, even though you might, you know, barely ever talk to each other during the normal year. But then you meet at these events, and that's a good time to talk to other people who also stream or do YouTube or whatever. And it's a special feeling, really, to feel like you're meeting other people who are doing something similar to you. So you can very easily connect with people that way. And I think it's really nice because that's when you have time to do so. Like, content creators are generally very busy people. It's like, it's a lifestyle. It's not just like a 9-to-5 job. You're kind of like always on and busy with something. But when you're at BlizzCon, it's like, you know that at this time, your job is just to be here. So as long as there's no important announcement or anything going on right now, you can, you know, talk to the other content creators, maybe plan dinner together, or you know, things like that you would otherwise not be able to do. I think that's also a major part that I would miss from that.
Yeah. So now I'm like sad again. Yeah.
And I miss all the restaurants too. I feel like restaurants are so big in America compared to here in Sweden. So I miss the food there too.
It was also like the post-Disneyland ritual. Like I had a lot of fun in 2018. I actually had enough staff for a change where I could like delegate and actually go to Disneyland after. And I'm like, oh, this is so much fun. And this was like really nice hanging out with people. We did like Haunted Mansion, for Halloween, which, I love Halloween. We did Star Wars stuff. There were a lot of convention fans around. Even some of the Disney staff were fans of Blizzard, so they were like talking in Disney code for like, oh, like in another galaxy, like I read your website, so it was really fun to do that. And I'm just sort of reminding myself that it was I worked really hard for BlizzConline, but I'm not going to have that nice like Disney trip at the end of it. So I'm trying to pace myself so I don't just crash in a few days and feel sad. But yeah, to what Hazel was saying, it was nice to work with the cat at home and just have like food laid out and have the food not cost $1 billion and not have lines or unsanitary things or security lines. And I remember I was live blogging. Yeah, I was live blogging the opening ceremony for 2019, and like it wasn't even in the convention center, but everything got so overloaded with the Diablo 4 as soon as the cinematic went up that everyone's internet went out. So if you got like 5 of us in a room just mega panicking that we couldn't live tweet the opening ceremony, and I think someone like set up a tether with their phone and it gradually got better, but that was something I did not have to deal with working from home. It was also weird going from panel to panel because like we cover everything at Wowhead and normally like a 10-minute break to account for people walking. But this time it's like, oh no, it's just like queued up one after the other because everyone's at home. So it was a little challenging not like having any break, but I'm glad the event happened. It's just very interesting, conflicting feelings with how many BlizzCons I've gone to and the memories with them.
Yeah, definitely. I just randomly remembered also, Hazel, you and I ended up on the front row on one of the was it the opening ceremony?
Yeah, and we had like an hour to an hour and a half to kill because the ceremony wasn't going to start for a while, but we wanted to keep the seats, so that was like the big chance that we had to like catch up and get to know each other was just hanging out right at the front.
It was so funny. It's like at the very front of everything. It's like, wait, that's Hazel. And I remember people also commenting because they saw us in the, how when the camera just kind of flashes by the audience and they would see us together, and people would tell me, oh my god, Annie, you were sitting next to Hazel, that's awesome. It was really funny.
Yeah, you guys bringing that reminded me just of something I guess I never think of between conventions, but something else I couldn't have done this BlizzCon is I'm always busy with the opening ceremony, but I always really liked at the end of the convention just like I spend so much time working and processing information that I don't always have time to just like I've never like just sat and enjoyed a panel because I have to work, but I always like at the end I always have the last thing I'll live tweet with a friend. We're kind of loopy, and then I make a point of going to the convention for the last few hours and just like not announcing anything, just walking around, enjoying the artwork. Sometimes the closing ceremony is going on, but I don't see it. I just want to feel like I'm an anonymous fan for a change that's, taking silly pictures of the statue and, posing with Pepe for selfies and, wandering around with plushies and, sitting in the art gallery for 30 minutes and just, enjoying the experience as a fan, not someone working or, being flagged down every 2 minutes. And, that's again, that's something chill that, I missed out on, that this year we all missed out on.
Yeah.
So.
I think overall it's good that we at least did have this online thing going on. It reminds us of what did happen, and it still brought us together in a little sense of it. And we get to enjoy some Blizzard World of Warcraft news to some extent, which is still exciting, even though we're not in a big room of everyone shouting at the same time, in positive shouting. That's one thing also that I miss, shouting together in excitement. But yeah, I think it was still good.
I just hope that the developers and I know Shadowlands was like very stressful to get out on time, and even though it was delayed, it still felt a bit, rushed, and people had, at least in the US, it was overlapping with 2 really major holidays, where, that's usually when people recharge and see their family, go on trips, And with COVID, they couldn't do that, and they had to work. And I think that people are really feeling that emotional toll now. And I just hope that people have time to take care of themselves. That it's not going straight from Shadowlands launch stress to BlizzConline stress to oh my god, like 9/1, need to get it out ASAP stress. I just hope that people can be kind to themselves, because they didn't need to do a BlizzConline at this time. They usually don't announce things in February. And they could have just even like done game updates, but they added cool things like lore and voice actor panels in the art gallery. So I just hope that people get the rest they need that put this event together.
Indeed. And with those final words, I think we have a wrap of a show.
Yeah.
Time to wrap it up. Hazel,
Right, Paul, come
thank
over.
you so much for joining us today. The show did go on for quite long now. You must be very tired, but we appreciate you being here. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much for having me. It's always good to chat and catch up and do the social WoW thing with other content creators.
Yeah, indeed.
And it's nice to see the cat again. It's like
Yeah.
it's similar to Brightpaw in appearance, but like way calmer than Brightpaw. So
Yeah, and smaller
Always
too.
She has her moments.
always good to know that other calmer cats exist. Maybe Brightpaw will be inspired one day.
Yeah.
Not today though.
Mhm.
But yeah, always really fun to have you on, and
Yeah.
nice to replicate that, a little bit of a feeling of, content creators, people working BlizzCon, getting to actually discuss it, with no Hilton DJ music thumping.
Oh god, yeah. I do not miss the volume of that. That's for sure. Thank you to everyone at home also watching the show. You guys are awesome, supporting the show and being around. Shout out to all the Hazel fans in here, and perhaps some new Hazel fans too. Don't forget to check out HazelNuttyGames on Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter for all the different content that she does. And we'll be back again next week, hopefully, with some other new things to talk about. Hazel Wave, I see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice ripping. Oh yeah,
high five?
yeah, let's do a high five.
Yeah, I think the arms are different than usual because there's 3 of us.
So Hazel, your right side, yeah, that is your right side, right? Yes, yeah. So one up and one below, and then I will be here, and Perk is at the right side too. So yeah, so I think we're good. Who will count? I think it's best if I count, so you guys have the same delay. Okay.
Okay.
I'll count. 3, 2, 1. Perfect.
None of us did the sound effect.
No, I forgot. I was thinking so much about the delay.
It's all quiet. It's like too much noise from BlizzCon. No one heard it with the music in the background. Social distanced high fives do not make sound, by the way. Yeah, we should just get a clap on the soundboard. And I can click it in the future, actually. That's a good idea. Yeah, let's put on the stream deck.
Yeah, I can put it on the stream deck. Actually, true. Also, quick shout out to Nomahu, who resubbed 7 months, Frimlin, who resubbed 5 months, Lincoln, who resubbed 38 months, and Faded Poster Child also subscribing with a fresh new Prime sub. Thank you guys so much for that extra length of support. And we'll be back again next week. Thank you guys again for watching. Thank you, Hazel, again for being here. And let's have some spam of Hazel socials in the chat as we put on the outro. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye. Thanks for all the BlizzCon support.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. And see you all next time. Just sitting here, like, waving.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, and Aelid is posting the socials. Thank you very much, Aelid.
Okay.
Bye.